Throwdown Nation, we are live. It is a Monday night. We are at episode 58, and we are currently streaming on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter/X, Facebook, and Twitch. This episode has turned out to be a bit of a surprise. We're going at it at a slightly earlier time than normal. We're at 6 p.m. Eastern, and tonight we're actually going to have a slightly abbreviated version of the Throwdown because Tommy's got to wrestle.
Yeah, baby, I got to wrestle tonight.
So we've got actually a fellow Georgia boy, Mr. Tommy Mars, who is also one half of the tag team, the Supastarz, with Nikki Eight. I've got to say, I love what you guys are doing. I was 14 years old when Shout at the Devil came out. So Motley Crue is right in my wheelhouse. So
Yes, sir. I've been listening to them since I was an infant, bro. Like, my mom used to play them. I swear she used to put up Motley Crue right on her belly. This way I could listen to it.
Awesome. So we'll go ahead and get started with the first and most obvious question, and that is, how long have you been wrestling?
A little over 2 years now. Began training July 2022 at the Nightmare Factory, and I was with the Nightmare Factory until earlier this year when I went to the New Japan Dojo, and then I came back to the Nightmare Factory about a week ago.
Gotcha. How did you end up getting the opportunity to go to the dojo?
I actually just contacted them and I was like, hey, I'm very interested in coming out here. It's a completely different style than everything I've been doing, and I always want to learn, grow, and become a better wrestler. So I just saw it and I was like, hey, I got to do this, and very thankful for everything that they did for me.
Absolutely. It looks like it was really a terrific experience. I've looked at some of the socials and everything from your time out there, and it definitely looks like you made the most of it.
Yes, sir. I debuted with West Coast Pro Future Stars of Wrestling out there, and I also did the New Japan Show Academy, or Academy Showcase, and that was really cool. And then I got to go down the Sunset Strip, got to go down Hollywood Boulevard, Venice Beach. It was worth it, man. It was awesome.
Oh, for sure. Just to be out there with all of those various landmarks and such. I mean, that's the stuff of legends.
Yeah, man. It definitely was. I wish I got to go out there when it was a little bit warmer, just so all the ladies on the boardwalks, but
Yeah, well,
take what you can get.
Absolutely. So, I know, I guess at the Nightmare Factory, you've done a lot of work with like QT Marshall and that bunch. Has that been? I guess obviously it must have been a good experience.
Oh yeah, definitely. Very thankful for everything that QT, Billy, Luke, Glacier, all of them. They've been very pivotal points in my career and helped me get a lot of opportunities. So I'm very thankful.
Gotcha. So in terms of the early portions of your training, what would you say was the most challenging part? What was the thing you probably struggled with the most?
Probably understanding the psychology of everything and why we do what we do. That was very difficult at first, but then once I understood it, it's like a light bulb just went off one day, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Gotcha.
Definitely in the Southern style too, because the Japanese style is very different. It's more or less the same, but the psychology is different. So both times actually, just understanding oh, and then the light bulb just went off.
Gotcha. And one thing I've noticed as a fan, watching the Japanese wrestling, the interaction between the talent and the fans is very different because the Japanese fans are much more, I guess, stoic and very polite as opposed to a lot of the American fans. So it's kind of a different dynamic there.
Yeah, I actually noticed that during my New Japan match too, because usually I'm out there with my drumsticks, getting the crowd all hype, getting them going. But this time I want to be more of a professional wrestler, uh, and go more of that approach. And I came out there, still doing the rock and roll stuff, but the crowd was very much more like paying attention to the little small details, and that's what they came to see, rather than um, like just do move, move, or like throw my drumsticks in the air, that type of thing.
Gotcha. So, aside from you and Nikki, obviously, in your mind, who is the best tag team in the business today and why?
Uh, are the Usos technically a tag team right now?
Well, I mean, they're currently kind of operating as singles, but I mean, I think ultimately they're still a tag team. Would you say the Usos?
I would definitely say the Usos. Either the Usos or FTR are always like great people to watch. Like you can't really get much better tag psychology than them.
Right, right.
Uh, on the independents though, I see a lot of violence as forever everywhere, and then I see like the swipe right dudes just got WID'd, so they're starting to get a little bit of steam. Um, on an independent level, I'd say like those are two of the bigger tag teams right now on the independents.
Nice, nice. So, I'm presuming you've been a fan of this stuff probably the majority of your life. Is that pretty accurate?
Oh yeah. Whenever I was 3 years old, I was pretending to be Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that's whenever I got my first concussion. I ran straight into a dresser because I was trying to wrestle my dad, and I went boom with my vest on. They had to take me dressed as Stone Cold Steve Austin to the hospital.
So, would you say that's probably your earliest wrestling related memory?
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. So at what point in your life was there a particular point where you realized that you wanted to try to make a go of this and actually do it?
Uh, I always wanted to do this, but I watched Brian Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness whenever I was like 7, 8-ish, over at my dad's. I remember he had this ROH CD, popped it in his computer, watched it, and I was like, oh, I want to do this. Like, this is like what I really want to do with my life. But then it kind of like faded a little bit because I was like, oh, I don't know how to actually get into this. And then I was actually engaged whenever I was 19, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna go do this. You can either come with me or not during the whole COVID thing. And she decided not to come with me, and I lived in my truck for 2 years, just trying to make things work.
Well, that's dedication for sure.
Yes, sir.
So, tell me a bit about in-ring Tommy and kind of compare and contrast him with everyday you.
Um, Honestly, there's just something about the crowd whenever I get out there and that environment, just getting the feel of like, oh, I'm ready to go. I'm red hot. Everybody's looking at me. And then like most of the rest of the time, I'm just kind of relaxed, just chilling for the most part. Unless like, we go out on the town, then I'm right back to in-ring Tommy. Tearing it
Gotcha.
up.
Gotcha. So, do you have an all-time favorite match as a fan? A match that you can have watched it a million times, but it just never gets old, and there's always some new little nugget that you can pull from it?
My favorite match of all time is JBL versus Eddie Guerrero. Inside of the one right before the bull rope match, at the Great American Bash.
Hmm.
It's like my favorite match of all time because they call it everything in the ring, and like you can just see like how they get the crowd reactions, how they get everything. Eddie's selling is beautiful. JBL is the perfect heel. It was just a match made in heaven.
Absolutely. So, tell us about your very first match that you wrestled in. What was it like? How did it go? What were your thoughts about it?
Uh, I was in Atlanta, or I was in Norcross, Georgia, basically Atlanta. It was
Hmm.
at the old Nightmare Factory studio. It was actually the last day that we trained there, did anything there. And it was against Jimmy Wild, who is killing it on the independent scene right now. And we actually had Glacier help us call our first match, which was pretty cool. And he set everything together, old WCW style. And I had to convince them to let me do a superplex, but we did a superplex. We did a code red. We went crazy, and then we ended it with a roll up and me grabbing the tights. But definitely had butterflies before and after. It went as good as a first match can go, honestly. Like our strikes weren't there yet. Like we were very green, but like with it both being our first match ever, and I came out as Tom Marciano inside of a boxing robe, doing the whole boxing thing because my grandpa used to be a boxer whenever he was a kid. His name was Tom, so it was like an ode to him.
Very cool. Very cool. So, we've heard about the first match. Now tell us about your favorite match that you've been a part of.
I got a couple actually. My recent one with New Japan. Um, just because I love that style. Whenever I was a kid, I always wanted to do that style. I always wanted to, like, I used to watch Japanese wrestling all the time, like especially in middle school and early high school. Like I was like staying up till like 4 a.m. to like watch Wrestle Kingdom and all that.
Hmm.
But we also got to wrestle QT and Billy Gunn. When at one of these Monday Nightmare shows, and that was really cool. Um, we wrestled the infantry a couple times. That was always fun. Uh, and then there's just like I wrestled Nick one time before, or Nikki, before we got going and running as a tag team, and we did a hardcore match type. It's the only one we've ever done, but we we used fire extinguishers. We used chairs. I power bombed them onto a stack of chairs and ended it with a big old elbow drop from the top through a trash can. So it was like classic WWE style. It was really fun.
Got you. If you could only be one, would you rather be great in the ring or great on the mic?
Great on the mic because that's where all the money's at. Most
Yeah.
definitely.
So, what has been your most unusual encounter with a fan?
It was like my third match ever, and we had this lady pull out a pizza cutter because we Nick gave me a kiss on the side of the cheek, and this other
Okay.
dude we were at gave me another kiss on the other side of the cheek. And we were in like a small town in Tennessee, and she pulls out a pizza cutter front row and starts swinging it and throws it at us. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, this is crazy. And then we had a another lady, like maybe 10, 12 matches. We did the same thing, but this time in a small town in Alabama. Uh, and this lady was in a wedding dress, and then her husband uh got a chair and like ran towards us with the chair. And then yeah, that one was wild too. We toned it down a little bit after that,
Gotcha. So,
especially in these small towns.
no doubt, no doubt. So, in terms of your in ring work and your promos, who would you say are some of your influences?
um JBL, Eddie Guerrero, Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels. um I'm a big fan of Bryan Danielson's technical wrestling too. I love Mr. Perfect, Bret
Oh, for
Hart.
sure.
I kind of just mix in a little bit of everybody, but the main one that I like to study is Eddie Guerrero and Mr. Perfect.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, and this can be present day or past. Who would be a dream opponent? Who would Tommy Mars love to work?
Uh, on the Japanese wrestling scene, I really want to wrestle Shingo Takagi, like so bad. Um, in WWE currently, it has to be Roman Reigns, but you know, uh, but in terms of like NXT, like I could do a killer match with Trick Williams. I could do a killer match with oh man. Ilya got called up, but I really want to wrestle Ilya Dragunov as well. And then AEW, like there's a list up and down. Been fortunate enough to wrestle like Lance Archer and The Righteous and Tony Nese and them. So, but Will Ospreay would be pretty
Um, I bet wrestling The Righteous was an interesting experience.
Yeah, their aura is really cool. Like just their snapping.
Yeah.
And then the lights going down. Like you can feel it whenever you're in the ring with them.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And talk about a couple of guys with a lot of experience too.
Oh yeah. And like Vincent is like one of the nicest dudes I've ever met. So shout out Vincent.
Absolutely. So, what would you say is your favorite move? Is there something in particular you just love doing? And then on the flip side of that, is there a move that you won't do or at least would rather not do?
You will never see me do a cutter. Or I've done a Canadian destroyer, so I can't say Canadian, but you'll never see me doing a cutter just because every single match has like 10 of them now, and I don't really care to blend in with everybody. My favorite move of all time is the drop kick. It's my finish. Like in the corner, I do a basement drop kick, and I rival anybody to try and do better drop kicks than me.
Got you. You know, you were mentioning a good NXT matchup. You know, based on what I've seen of what you do, I actually feel like you could have a good matchup with Ethan Page.
Yeah, Ethan Page would be really fun.
Yeah,
well, even whenever he was on the
apparently,
independent scene.
I actually heard today that he just got a call up to Maine.
Oh, did he? Oh, that's awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
That's good for him.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I
He
just
deserves it.
you know, right when you were mentioning NXT, immediately Ethan Page just came to mind. I was like, I bet the two of you would have some good chemistry. So
Yeah, he kind of
anyway,
does sort of the same style as me, so I think we could really blend and like just go out there and tear it up.
Gotcha. So you're still a pretty young guy and you haven't been doing this for that long, but I'll ask this anyway, and that is what hurts right now?
Everything. Honestly. The new my hamstring's been killing me lately just because at New Japan we were doing a lot of splits, like split rolls, backward split rolls. And I haven't done splits since I was doing Taekwondo. So that one was like, so now I'm like recovering my hamstring and my shoulder irking me a little bit, but you know, power through every day. Just got to go to the gym, you know?
For sure. So, what is the most significant injury that you have suffered either wrestling or training?
The only thing I've ever really had injured is my hamstring, since I began wrestling. Beforehand, during football, like I popped my shoulder out of place, popped it back in. So, those are really the only two.
Got you. So, what is your take on the role that social media is playing as a promotional tool in wrestling?
I feel like it helps a lot of wrestlers get discovered, which is a great thing. But I also think that it does the complete opposite and helps a lot of really talented wrestlers not get discovered because like me, I work like 50 hours a week, manage my social media, manage my bookings, manage my gear making, manage everything. And like it it can harm you and it can help you. So like I'm in the middle on it, but the more you can if you're really good and really talented at social media, I think it's a great tool for you. But I also think that it can do harm for you. But I think it's like a pivotal part of wrestling now, and you have to have it. Just like you have to have good gear, just like you have to have good work. You got to have like really good wrestling. You know, like you got to have your fundamentals down. And I think you can almost throw social media in that with today's age.
Got you. So, do you have any pre-show traditions, rituals, superstitions, basically anything that you try to do consistently before you walk through the curtain?
Uh, Honestly, I just get out there and go. Like, there's nothing. I don't usually work out. If I see weights there, that's cool. Um, Drink an energy drink earlier in the day, but that's really about it.
Got you. So something that we've done in all of these is we've let the current guest pose a question for the next guest.
Mhm.
And my previous guest was another Atlanta-based wrestler, Neji Ichiban, and he posed this question, and that is, what is your favorite way to start a match?
Um, I like chain wrestling in the beginning, only because you can help it tell a better story later on, uh, and because it's a very pivotal part. But I also like a lot of Gaga if it's a bar show. So if it's a bar show, I like to go out there and get my drumsticks. Nick will hit the ropes with his guitar back and forth, and then we'll do a little bit of rock and roll, get the crowd really involved. That's probably my favorite thing to do at the beginning part of a match.
Got you. And since this is part of a series, is there a question that you would like to pose to the next guest? And I can go ahead and tell you the next guest is tomorrow night at 7. I've got actually another Atlanta-based wrestler, Mr. Rockstar Donovan Thomas. It doesn't have to be particular to him. You may or may not even know him, but do you have a question you would like to ask?
Um, yeah, since he's a rock star, what's your favorite band performance of all time?
Okay. And how would you answer that?
Um, I'm a sucker for the first time that Tommy Lee ever brought out the drum set, like the roller coaster. It's so good. That's my dream entrance one day
Oh,
is to get
yeah.
a drum roller coaster, play the drums out before I go out. I don't care if I'm doing a 2-3 minute match, but that needs to happen at some point.
Gotcha. So do you actually play drums?
Yes, I do. I actually didn't play them before I started this, but I've been learning over the last year, and I've always been interested in the drums, so I was like, yeah, might as well. But yeah, I've
Gotcha.
gotten pretty
Gotcha.
good at it
Yeah,
lately.
I'm actually well, that's cool. I'm actually a hobbyist bass player. So, I definitely understand where you're coming from in terms of your love of music and wanting to kind of incorporate it into what you're doing. So
Yes, sir.
we're pretty much toward the end of things now. So do you have any upcoming shows or social media to hype or anything like that? Where are you at tonight? Where are you wrestling?
I am in Watkinsville, Georgia for Monday Nightmares, and then I'm not gonna be there this Friday, but I'm gonna be at the following 3 Fridays TCW shows, and they're scattered all through Georgia. You can find them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Um, And then we're gonna be working Coastal Empire Wrestling in Savannah, Georgia, starting in January, and then we're gonna be beginning working with Viral Pro Wrestling in February and March. So be on the lookout for all of
Nice,
those.
nice.
I
So
don't think
you've got a
anything's been
bit.
announced yet, but we'll throw that in there for you.
Awesome, awesome. Well, anyway, I want to thank you for your time. I know you've got to get going, but anyway, like I said, tomorrow night at 7, I've got Mr. Rockstar Donovan Thomas. And then on Wednesday, the 11th at 7 Eastern, I've got a masked wrestler from Philadelphia by the name of Eric Black, who he's coming on. And then this coming Sunday, the 15th at 7 p.m., I've got episode 61 with another tag team, Death Rock City, who they're out of New York, and they're composed of Montilla the Killa and Duncan Only. And they are pretty much mainstays on the New York scene.
Hell yeah. Sounds like you got a killer rock up, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, you know, the schedule is definitely full. And, you know, it's been a really great thing doing these. And like I said, Tommy, I want to thank you for your time. Hopefully sometime soon we can get you and Nikki back on and do a more full length, more in-depth episode, you know, and talk to both of you guys. But anyway, have a good night. Be safe, wrestle hard. And
Yes,
and everybody, thank you for being on here with us, and keep throwing down.
sweet. Rock on, baby.